Okay, yeah. So yeah, you open up the terminal. We're not going to go into the basics of Linux navigation. We're not
Mhm.
going to really worry about how to use the terminal to its fullest capabilities. This is just going to get us into where we need to be to start learning about coding. Um, so for the most part, you're only going to use 2 or 3 commands in the command line here. Don't really worry about everything else. So from here, what I want you to do, and it doesn't matter which location you're at in the terminal, you're just going to type in Python. Okay. So you're going to type this in and hit enter. Okay. So it should show up, and you should have like something like that appearing on your screen, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So that is how you access Python. Python is a base programming language that's very much so um, uh, based and built off of mathematics. And before you freak out, because a lot of people don't like mathematics, um, it's actually very user friendly. So um, before we get into the actual meat of coding, what do you think, in your own words, what do you think coding is or programming? Like, give me a kind of a general idea of what you think that means.
Communicating with the computer,
Uh, Communicating with the computer.
giving giving commands to the computer.
Yeah, yeah. And what is the purpose of doing this? Like, you just want to tell it to take out the trash? You want to tell it you're useless? Like, what's the point of communicating to the computer?
I think you could tell it to do. You can tell it anything, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you could tell it to perform a task. You can tell it to not perform a task.
yeah, yeah. So you
Mhm.
you can tell it to do things, and but why do you want the computer to do it? Why don't you just do it?
Because I don't want to. Because there's potential to have to do it hundreds or thousands of times, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's
And I don't want to sit and do that.
exactly. It's coding is meant to make your life as easy as possible. Like you want to be able to um, make the computer do all the nitty gritty, crappy tasks that you would normally have to do, so that you don't have to do them anymore. Um, and that's essentially what coding is. You're trying to get the computer to do a bunch of stuff for you. So you're spot on there. Um, However, what we're going to take a look at here is, let me switch back to, yeah, here we go. So we're going to give you some examples here of coding outside of a computer. This is going to be helpful because it's going to help to kind of put into perspective for you what programming, what coding kind of entails. So, okay, great. Um, Give me an example. Well, not give me an example. In math, I can do something like this, right? Okay, something, can you see that?
Yeah.
So you can do something very basic like this. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals x. And
Oh, I thought those were
this,
absolute values.
oh, sorry, sorry,
Sorry.
let me do this.
I was like, well, all right.
Um,
Okay.
Actually,
Sorry.
for the recording part, let me drag this screen over to here. Okay. So you have, wait, is that backwards to you?
I read it right to left, or sorry, left to right. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals x.
Okay, on my screen it's backwards. So I apologize to anyone watching this on the YouTubes. It's not supposed to look like that. Okay, so you have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals x. Um, and in mathematics, you don't really want to take 4 steps to figure out your solution, right? You want to be able to break this down to as least impactful of a task as you can. So coding isn't just getting the computer to do something for you so that you don't have to anymore. Coding is also teaching the computer how to do things more efficiently, so that instead of it taking 4 steps, you can teach it how to take 1. So you can say, 4 times 1 equals x. And essentially, when you start getting into multiplication and division, that's basically mathematical coding. Okay, like, have you heard of things like log of x and
Yeah.
number to the x power?
Hmm.
Those are basically shortcuts or algorithms to come up with answers instead of having to do a bunch of addition and subtraction. That's essentially all it is. So if you were to write out everything that log does, for instance, log base 2 of 64 equals x, this is actually telling you, is explaining a lot of things in a kind of a code-driven idea. Because the way that you would write this out longhand is you're saying 2 to what power equals 64. So it's like doing a root, not a square root, but it's an x root where you're having to solve for x. So this is the shorthand for it. The longhand for it is, I don't know if I have enough room to do it, but it's basically 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, and then so on and so on. So this would be like 2 squared, this is 2 cubed, and then 2 to the 4th. And you keep adding up those values for 2 to the 4th and then 2 to the 5th until you reach the end where you find out that log base 2 of 64 actually equals 6. But it would require adding 2 32 times over the course of 5 different giant parentheses blocks of those 32 2's. So this is much shorter for everything else, and that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to write things into simple terms to make it as readable as possible, to get the point across as quickly as possible, while doing it in as few steps as possible. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, you have any questions about that?
I do not.
Okay, so that is the base idea of coding. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The point is to get the computer to do things for you, but you want it to do it in as efficient way as possible. And a lot of times we actually teach computers how to figure those things out for us if we can't quite wrap our heads around the math, which is really Skynet driving mentalities there. So let me get back into the command seat here and share my desktop again for you. And we're going to start learning about how Python and math are very closely related.
And what?
Python and math are very closely related. Okay.
Sorry, I don't know if my connection sucks or if the internet sucks here. I don't know. It's just...
It keeps cutting out.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do this. I'll speak it and I'll type it out for you in shorthand. And if you need to watch it on the YouTubes later, then...
I mean, I hear 95% of the time. I'll
Okay.
just stop you when I don't hear you. So you don't have to retype everything unless...
There you go. Good times, right? Okay, so we're in Python right now. All right, we have those three greater than signs pointing us to something. So we're gonna start with something very basic. Okay.
Okay.
We're just gonna type in the number 8 and hit enter, and it's gonna spit out the number 8 again to you and give you another line. Right? You're basically just saying, hey, here's an 8. and Python is repeating it back to you going, hey, I found an 8. So now what you want to do is you want to assign 8 to a variable. So every time that variable is called, it's going to remember that it's 8. So you don't have to call it 8 anymore. You can just call it something else. So what do you want your variable to be called? You can call it anything you want.
Number sign.
Okay, let's number sign. I'm gonna write it like that. Okay. Sorry, a written word. Let's do written
Oh,
words.
okay.
So let's call it
Batman.
Batman. Okay. I usually call mine Taco, but we'll do Batman. Do Batman equals 8 in the command line
And enter.
and enter. Yeah. So you just get this new line here.
Spaces, right?
Spaces or non-spaces, I don't think it really matters. I do spaces because it makes it a little bit easier on the eyes.
Okay.
Okay, so you have this new line here. So now what you can do is you can just say Batman, right? So now if you say Batman, because of what we learned up here, that if you're going to
Okay.
say it, it's going to spit out to you exactly what it thinks it is, right? So if you do Batman, you should get something like that.
Yep, that's what I got.
Okay. So now whenever you call Batman, it's going to assume that the value is 8 because that's what you told it it is. And what you can do with this is you can implement a bunch of mathematical approaches to things using variables, because you use variables all the time in math, right? You know, x squared plus 2x plus 3 equals high five, and you know those kinds of examples can give you headaches if you don't know what's exactly going on. But now you get to be in control of the variables. You're no longer the guinea pig of someone else's variables. You get to harness that all for yourself.
Okay.
So what you can do with this is, because Python is very math-based, you can just type in an equation, and Python will try and figure it out for you. So if you just let's do 3 plus 7 and hit enter, you should get
11,
10.
right? Oh.
Exactly. So here we are with 11, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine and dandy at all, but we want to incorporate Batman into this, right? So let's have another variable. We're going to call this one Robin, all right? And Robin, pick any whole real integer that you want, preferably under 100.
13. 13.
13?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and assign Robin the value of 13. And then go ahead and type in Robin just to make sure that it's stuck.
Okay.
Okay, and it should say 13.
Yep.
So from here, what you can say is Batman plus Robin. And it should give you the sum of Batman and Robin.
Ooh, it did. Just so you know, I closed out a bunch of programs and I can hear you fine now. It hasn't.
Okay.
It's been fine. I don't. If that helps you at all.
It may have been a memory issue on your end. And
Yeah.
we'll learn all about that in the future. We're not going to really go into the hardware stuff right now. So now you have two variables that are statically have static values, meaning that they don't change, and you can play with them. You don't have to call 8 or 13 anymore. You just say Batman, Robin. You might be thinking, okay, what's the point of that? Batman is 6 characters long, and its value is 8, so you're using more characters than you would normally if you just typed in 8 plus 13. That's what, 6 characters including spaces, and here's this other thing that's 14 characters including spaces. So how is this better? It's
What? How do you? Can you get rid of those assignments or those? What would you call that?
a variable declaration.
Okay. Can you get rid of that declaration?
You can, yes and no, depending on where you're at in the code. For where we're at right now, in this screen here, Um, this is all temporary. None of this is being saved anywhere. So as soon as we exit out of this
Okay.
Python UI and we come back into it, there is going to be no Batman variable. There's going to be no Robin variable. If we type it in, Python's going to get mad at us, right? So if I say Jackie Chan into my terminal here and I hit enter, I'm going to get this error. Let me,
Okay.
right? So it says,
It's not defined.
yeah, trace back. And trace back, that whenever it says trace back, it just means that there's an error in Python. All right, so it
Okay.
says trace back, and it gives you the file. And in this case, it's stdin, which is the UI for this program. It's basically this interface here that we're playing with. Saying that in this, it can't find dust storm. Sorry, I'm just getting a notification on my phone saying there's a dust storm coming, which is a lot of fun, but it's going to keep going off like every 17 seconds because that's the way it works. So yeah, it's saying
Aren't those called haboobs?
yes, they are. They don't call them that in the text though. I would love it if they said haboob, because part of that is boob and the other one is laughter, and those are two of my favorite things. Um, so it's giving you an error here saying name error, name Jackie Chan is not defined. We haven't set Jackie Chan to a value yet, so it's like, okay, you told me Jackie Chan, but I have no idea what the heck that means. You have to tell me what it means first before I can do anything with it.
Okay.
And so from here, one of the fun things you can do with the variables is you can use variables to define other variables. Okay, and by that I
Okay.
mean if we want to do let's do since we're going comic books, let's do Bane. Bane
Okay.
equals Batman plus Robin. Oh, I spelled Bane wrong because I like Batman. Bane equals Batman plus Robin. Okay, so if we do that and we hit enter, it's going to give us back another line, right?
Hmm.
It's going to say, cool, yeah, whatever you want. So if you type in Bane now, you should get the value 21.
Sure enough. By the way, can your YouTube video hear me?
Yes. Yes. Can you?
Okay.
Okay. Um, yeah, it would sound horrible if it was just me talking to nothing. And I mean, as funny as that would be, it's like Kenny's losing his mind. Okay. Um, they can't see you though, so don't worry about being naked or wearing that chicken costume like you are. Um, so now we have these three variables: Batman, Robin, and Bane. Uh,
Okay.
and from here, I mean, you can do all sorts of math. So the 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 five primary mathematical signs that you're going to use are plus. You probably know that one. Minus. Now
Ooh, the one with the dots.
asterisk here is the same as times. Okay. So you use asterisk when you're meaning multiplication, and then division, which is the forward slash here. There's one more though, and this isn't something that's really used a lot outside of computer programming, and it's this sign. It's the percentage sign. Now this means modulo, and what this
Munch
means,
what?
modulo, MOD.
Okay.
I believe that's how it's spelled. But how this works is it's like division, but it only focuses on the remainder. So if you do like 10 divided by 3, you're going to get something like 3.3333, and then it's going to keep going,
Hmm.
right? In modulo, though, if you did 10 modulo 3, what this is going to say is essentially what division is, which is how many times can I subtract this number from this other number. Yeah, how many times can I subtract this number from this other number? So it's going to say 10 minus 3 minus 3 minus 3, and then it can't go negative, so it'll go, oh, there's one remainder. Because 3 plus 3 is 9, 10 minus 9 is 1. There's one remainder, so the 10 modulo 3 equals 1. So it's only the remainder that it focuses on.
Okay.
Um, so to kind of show how this operates in Python, because the Python defines types of data um, a little bit differently. It might seem pretty logical from your perspective that some of these things would obviously equate each other, but to the language, to the program, it doesn't necessarily know what you're intending, right? It only knows what you tell it. So for instance here, if I do 10 divided by 3 in my command line here, so I'm doing this answer, or this question, what do you think it's going to spit out for me?
10 divided by 3.
So it's going to spit out 3.33335. Okay. If I do, I must have a different version. Oh, I'm using Python 3.6. Okay. What version of Python are you running?
I have no idea.
So at the top there where you typed in Python and then it spit
Oh.
out some stuff and it had those 3 arrows,
Uh,
what does it say there?
Highlight where I would read it. Oh,
So it's right underneath where you type in Python.
2.7.10.
2.7, okay. So I'm using a different version of Python here. Let me see if I can open up.
Because mine, when I did 10 divided by 3, it just came back as invalid syntax.
Oh.
Oh, why?
Let me. I might do this. Let's see. Oh, did I get rid of? I hope I didn't get rid of it. Okay, I may have gotten rid of. I may have gotten rid of my 2.7. Okay, I'll install 2.7 later.
A different one?
No. I would say stick with 2.7.
Okay.
It's one of the most commonly used, and you'll see a bunch of help with it online about 2.7. You won't find as much in version 3. There are some syntax issues, but in on my system at work, on my Ubuntu system, which is running 2.7, when I do 10 divided by 3, or 3, I don't know why I'm doing it over here, it's not going to show it. When I do 10 divided by 3, it comes out with 3. Because 3 goes into 10 3 times, and I didn't tell it to look for decimal places, so it doesn't look for decimal places. So for yours, you get an error, right, for a bad format. So try doing 10.0 divided by 3 and see if that helps.
No.
No?
No.
Try 3.0. 10.0 divided by 3.0.
Nope.
You'll have to send me a screenshot of what you're seeing there, and I'll have to take a look at it.
I sent you a picture message.
I threw my phone away. Let me take a look.
Oh.
It must still be coming over the line. All I see is I'm ready.
Oh. That's another reason I turned my Wi-Fi off to hopefully hope my...
Oh, I gotcha.
We'll try again in a second. Anyways, that's
so,
okay.
So, regardless, just so you know, the Python takes a look at values differently. So in programming languages, not just Python, this value is kind of differently approached than this value. Specifically because this one is saying, hey, expect or don't be surprised if you find decimal places. This one is saying, we're not looking for decimal places, so we don't care about them.
Okay.
So it's important to be aware that a decimal place defines to the programming language, the engine, what or how it's going to be used. So like in C sharp, in the C sharp programming language, you have to define what variables are going to be. So we're not going to get into this too heavy. Python, you don't really have to define anything about a variable. Like in C sharp, you would say something like int taco equals 5. So you're saying the variable taco is an integer, and its
Okay.
integer value is 5. However, if you wanted to include a decimal point to it, you'd have to say float taco equals 5.0. And if you try to do int taco equals 5.0, one of two things would likely happen. It would either give you an error saying if taco is going to have a decimal place to it, it needs to be a float or a double or something of that nature, or it will automatically set the value of taco to just 5. So it'll delete the .o. So just so you're aware, there in other languages and sometimes in Python, having decimal places and not having decimal places can ruin or hurt your calculation when you're doing things. So that's something that's good to remember when you're going out and practicing these things.
Okay. So while listening
Okay.
and
So
watching, I've tried multiplication as well as the fifth one, and it hasn't. It just comes up with syntax error as well.
yeah, so take off the equals sign at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have to include the equals because when you hit enter, hitting
Oh.
enter is saying equals.
Ha.
Yeah, so it looks like so for the YouTube, so people don't have the same issue. Something like that was being entered in, and and the enter key itself kind of, or it does replace this value here. So you don't have to say equals. It just the only time that you say equals is when you're like assigning a variable or you're doing
Okay.
like a conditional thing. We'll get into conditions later. We're not going to really focus on them right now. But the idea of this is that you can assign a whole bunch of variables a whole bunch of values. And again, this comes down to, okay, why is that important? Why is that helpful? And I'm
Right.
gonna show you an example of that right now. So we're kind of taking a big step here. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to interrupt me and jump in and say, that doesn't make any sense. What the hell are you talking about, you fat bastard? What's wrong with you? Anything
Well, I
you
have
want to
one
do.
thing
Okay. Oh,
easier, and I'm sure.
just wait until the end, though. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, why would it be easier to remember that Bane equals Batman plus Robin instead of 21 equals 8 plus 13?
Let me show you here with this example, and hopefully it'll make more sense. So the thing is that Batman and Robin, they're both variables. However, you can change Batman and Robin on the fly, and
Okay.
because you can change them on the fly, that also alters the value of Bane. And you don't want to have to keep saying, like if Batman changes from 8 to 9,
Oh, okay.
you don't want to have to keep telling Bane that you have to increment by 1. Bane now all of a sudden remembers that he's Batman plus Robin. So if Batman is 9, then Bane becomes 22, right? So we can test this right now just to show. So you can say
Okay.
Batman equals 9.
Because there's.
So you're just reassigning the variable of Batman to the value of 9. If you hit enter, it's gonna be okay with it. Now if you type in Bane, you should get 22.
Mhm.
Okay.
Nope.
No?
No.
Well, crap. Hold on.
So I assume this would come into play when you're having like 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, and so on and so forth, right?
Um,
Like, you don't want to keep adding,
yeah,
or what would it be? X plus 1, X plus 2, X plus 3, X plus 4. You
it,
wouldn't want to keep assigning that, is that right?
that's part of it. You're like
Okay.
that's setting up a timer, right? So let's do an
Right.
example of that right now. Okay, so in your command line here, let's do def um, DC. So do def DC, and you should get something like this that pops up.
You're right, I did get that.
The three dots.
What 3 dots?
Did you get syntax error? Or did you get the three dots that open up the?
Syntax error.
Uh, oh crap! Hold on a second. I was. So one thing I won't do this off screen. One thing you're going to learn to become great at is Googling. So Python 3.6 class definition. Okay, so that's what I forgot is the. Okay, so you're gonna do that.
Ah, there we go.
Okay, now you got the three dots, right?
Hmm.
So, um, quick little sidestep for just a second.
Okay.
Um, if you take a look at programming, like coding examples online, actually I have this here, so you can see. Okay, so you have def scope, but you notice right here there's like a bunch of empty space
Hmm.
here, and then another series of empty spaces here, and it breaks things up and makes it look a little bit more readable. Um, these are different layers of programming, uh, also known as nesting. Okay,
Okay.
and Python relies on these empty spaces to tell it where certain code belongs. Okay, so if you actually think of a those Russian dolls,
Hmm.
from a man who knew too little, and you open it up and there's another doll inside, and you open it up and there's another doll inside, and you just keep
Yeah,
doing that thing over and over.
Russian nesting dolls.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, Russian nesting dolls. Um, okay, I might be slightly retarded, but let's not worry about that. That's essentially what you're doing here. Is you have your um, main code, and that's the outside. But you don't want some stuff running outside all the time. You want some of it to run only part of the time. So then you put those into a smaller shell. And
Okay.
then the stuff inside that smaller shell might have additional stuff that you don't want it to run at any other time except for when that one thing is called. So you put that into a smaller shell. And all of this is defined by spacing. So if from here in your in here, if you were to hit x equals 7, just as it is, you should get a syntax error.
Okay.
Okay, indentation error, expected an indented block. So Python is saying, okay, you just said that you wanted to define a class called DC, and I'm okay with that, I'm cool with that, but I was expecting you to indent it in. So in other programming languages, they don't necessarily have to worry about indentation. Instead, they use brackets. So they do indentation, don't get me wrong. They do
Right.
indentation, but it's mostly governed by these brackets here. So this squiggly bracket and this
Hmm.
closing squiggly bracket is basically the same thing as the indentation that you get in Python.
Okay.
But we're not going to worry about these. We're going to learn about these when we actually get into Java. For now, we're just going to rely on spacing to keep our code in order. Okay. So what this is expecting here is some indentation of any kind. But it's expecting you to keep it consistent throughout that nest. Right, so let's type in that def DC parentheses again. And this time, hit space 2 times. And now do x equals 7. And you should get 3 more dots.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And from here, if you want to add something else into that class, you have to hit space 2 more times. So now you're nesting things inside of this method, this class, with this indentation. Okay. So from here, if you want to do trying to think of the best way to set this up. Okay, go ahead and hit enter 2 times. You should get back your
Mm-hmm.
value here, right? So we're gonna take another jump here, and we're gonna introduce a variable when we create a method. Okay, and let me know if you're getting confused about the terminology, and I'll re-explain it as many times as I need to. But we're going to create a new method, and we're going to call it def tacos, and we're going to include y as a variable. Okay, so we're going to say def tacos y, and from here, make sure you indent in a couple of spaces. We're going to say while y less than 10, and then you're going to do another, let me actually make sure this is going to work before I have you. Okay. Right. Okay. Just realized I did something wrong with my. Okay. All right. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a bunch of ones right there. All right. So we're gonna set up a little program here to run for us. Okay.
Okay.
And this is gonna show you how using variables is really useful. So you have this def tacos parentheses y parentheses, and then you're going to jump down and you're going to do 2 spaces and do while y is less than 10. And so this is basically setting up a condition and saying, hey, while is just saying, I want you to keep doing something over and over and over until a condition is met. And this is the condition here, right? So you're saying, until the dishes are clean, do the dishes. That doesn't mean
Right.
you scrub the glass once and then you leave all the dishes in the sink. It means you do all the dishes until there aren't any dishes in the sink, right? So you're saying while this condition is true, and then hit enter, and you're going to get another one of these. Now this time, you're making another nest, right? So you have to space
Mm-hmm.
in 4 times. So this one is spaced in twice, but you
Mm-hmm.
need this next one to be underneath and inside this while statement. So you're going to space in 4 times, and that's going to put you within the while statement. So while y is less than 10, you're going to say print y, okay? And then if you hit enter, you're going to get this again. Space in 4 more times, and do y plus equals 1. Okay. Now what this does? Print is a method or a function in Python that performs a task for you, and that task is it's going to print it onto the screen for you. Okay, this is very helpful to know when you're doing debugging, right? So if you have a whole bunch of code and the error is coming from a particular line, but you don't know why or how in this particular line it's coming out, you can put print statements throughout the code to say, okay, this value is becoming this here, and then this here, and then this here. Oh, and that's the step where it messes up. It might actually fail 13 steps later, but the 13 steps before is where the actual problem is occurring, and printing allows you to kind of debug programs. So print is just saying, print it to the screen for me, okay? And you have to include the parentheses here, because again, it's a method like tacos, right? So you're saying print y, and then this here, this is kind of shorthand for saying, let me do, it's shorthand for saying like y equals y plus 1.
Okay.
Okay, so if y equals 1, then y will become 1 plus 1, which is 2. And then the next time it loops through, y, which is now 2, will become 3. So this is creating a counter, or at a timer, saying I want you to keep doing this until y is not less than 10.
Can I hit enter?
Yeah, you can hit enter. Oh, hit enter twice. Sorry. Okay, now from here, now it's in a method, okay? And you can call methods. So this isn't going to run all the time in the background. It's not going to figure it out until you say, hey, what's the result of this method? So you actually have to call it. So if you say tacos, so from here, if you put in tacos and then any number you want, so if you put in 5 and then hit enter, you should see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right?
How about that?
Oh, it goes up to 9. Yeah, okay. So now you have this method that you can call that will increment a value by 1 over and over again. And here's why, right? Y is this variable that's being changed, its value is being changed and assigned each time it goes through this process. Okay, and so you can implement that with the Batman and Robin scenario. So the reason why Bane equals 21 is because at the time when we assigned Bane, Batman was 8. But because we didn't reestablish Bane's value as being corresponding to Batman and Robin after the change, it still holds on to its previous value.
Okay.
So this right here, this is, I kid you not, like 80% of programming. Like it might seem like an oversimplification, and if someone who's much better at this than I am was watching this, they might just blow up in the comments and be like, "You have no idea what programming is." The kind of person that can only get it up if they're being strangled or hitting someone. Those kinds of people, they disagree with me, and they're wrong, and I'm okay with that. But the idea is that you're defining a method that you're going to use over and over and over again. And that's what coding is. You're going to assign values that are going to change or not change depending on what you need them to do. And they're going to do a whole bunch of stuff for you very quickly. So let's, as another good example of this, do you know the Fibonacci sequence? right? You have the first two numbers, and then from those first two numbers you get all the other numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the first two numbers
Of
of the Fibonacci sequence? The
oh, dude, I don't know what the
Oh,
Fibonacci
okay,
sequence is.
okay.
I
It's
can Google
it's
it.
no, no, no. It's 0 and 1. Okay, 0 and 1. Um, but we can have the computer figure out the entire Fibonacci sequence for us. Um,
What
and it's infinite, right? It's going to go on forever. But just to give an
Yeah.
example of how quickly it goes, we're going to do a def fib, and then remember to space in twice.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to say x equals 0, y equals 1. We're going to say while x is greater than -1. So this is basically setting up a never-ending loop. Okay, um, and it's just going to fill up your screen with a whole bunch of gunk, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's a lot of fun, right? So you're going to do while x is greater than -1. Go ahead, enter. Make sure you space in 4 times now because we're getting inside of another layer.
Was the while x is greater than -1 supposed to be 2 or 4? 2?
2. Yep. Yep. So while x is greater than -1, because you're saying that we're going to call this method here, this fib, and
Mm-hmm.
when fib runs, we want to do a bunch of stuff,
Okay.
and we want the while to exist within that. And if we put it over here, then you'd get that syntax error because it's expecting an indent.
Okay.
And if you wanted to exit out, you'd have to hit enter twice, and then it
Mm-hmm.
would. You type in while x is greater than -1, and if we have an assigned x a value, it would give us a syntax error and say what's this name x, like
Mm-hmm.
what is that? So while x is greater than -1, you're gonna say print y, and then let me think here. X. Well, let me think about this for just a second. Plus equals y.
Do you want me to just try it?
And let's do x. I think something like that might work. Let me try this out real quick. Fib equals 0, y equals 1, while x is greater than -1. Whoa, I assigned that too early? I think I assigned that too early. I did assign that too early. Okay. I'm trying to think of the best way to set this up. Because I need that to change, but I need that one to... Wonder if it'd be better if I did... You know what? I really don't want to... Okay.
Can I So I've typed out everything that you have.
Yep.
Can I like go back and delete it or add in lines in between, or is it just kind of you have to redo it?
You kind of have to redo it in the current UI that we're using. So that's actually the next step after this example of what to do to make
Okay.
it a little bit easier to work with. Um, oh, son of a bitch. I mean, for all you watching, son of a motherless goat. Um, I can't believe I just went through and did all that, and I forgot for the dang print. Okay. Ah, x equals 1. So the purpose of this little UI thing here is to test things out, right? So if you're in the middle of working on a bunch of code, you may not have the time to write in a whole bunch of code to your already existing program and run the entire program just to check if one little thing that you're trying out works. So this little UI here is great for kind of implementing one little logic piece of code that you're looking to introduce and making sure that it works the way that you intend it to, without it impacting your code and breaking things and messing things up. And that's generally what the intention of this UI here is for. Son of a, yep, that did it. Okay. Um, so it worked very, very quickly. Those are individual numbers right here, by the way. This entire
Oh.
thing is a number. Okay. So what it did, what I'm telling it, I changed x to 1 to make this easier because that's the second and third numbers of Fibonacci. Right. So you have the sequence is basically you take a plus b equals c, and then b plus c equals d, and then d plus c plus d equals e, and you just keep doing that with the alphabet. You might be
Hmm.
thinking some sociopath came up with a way to infinitely add forever just for kicks and giggles. It has some cool mathematical properties, but I'm not going to really get into all those. The first two numbers are 0 and 1. So from here, if you implement that, 0 plus 1 is 1. And then 1 plus 1 equals 2, and then 1 plus 2 equals 3. So take the two ending numbers of the chain, add them together, and that creates the next value in the chain. So that's 5, 3 plus 5 is 8, 13, 21, 34, and it keeps going on like that. And
Forever.
yeah, and to show this to you and explain this to you, that took, what, 45 seconds? In half of a second of running the program to figure it out, we got up to a number that is like, I don't know,
Wait, that's all one number?
yeah, this like you see this break here, this black break,
Yeah.
that implies, or that means the end of a number. So then this entire block here is the next number in the sequence.
Jeez.
So, so this is why we use variables, and this is how we use them to our advantage, because it took me, what, 90 times longer, 100 times longer to explain this than it took this program to figure out this large of a number.
Jeez.
Yeah. Um, Actually doing some quick math here, and I may have done the program. Anyway, um, so that's essentially what the purpose of this UI is to test something out, see if it works the way you want it to, instead of throwing it into a program that already works, that it's already functioning, and getting it to fail because you implemented some poor code. Like we've run into how many errors since we started.
Quite a few. I
Yeah,
mean,
quite a few. Now, would you like to have a much bigger program that actually impacts people's work and ability to do work by your constant implementing of things that maybe don't work and causing things to crash? Not the best idea, right? So
no,
you,
no, it's not. So this is just essentially a test environment where you can take
your
your.
concept and test it out in a sandbox, um, risk-free scenario.
Okay.
Okay. So to exit out of this, once you're in it, you're going to hit Control Z as in Z. It might be Command Z on your keyboard there, the Apple command. And then you're going to hit Enter. And it should bring you back to your command line where you have. Is it not doing that?
Oh no, yeah, it did. It was
Okay.
still control.
Okay. So now you're out. And to get back in, you just type in Python. But to get out, you hit Control Z, hit Enter, and now you've exited out of that UI. So that's fine and dandy and all, right? That gives you something to kind of play with if if you want to test out how Python works. Um, and from here, we can move on to the next thing, but I want to leave it up to you if you want to keep going on or if you want to take what you've learned and play with it until we meet again.
Uh,
I'm good with either.
I really
I've
grasp.
I've blocked away the entire evening for you, so if for as long as you want to go, you say.
Wow, you're so special.
I know you are.
So well, I really grasped the addition stuff, the first stuff that we did. I don't think that I could replicate your where was it?
The
Your def DC.
this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to go into that further then?
Um, I have other homework.
Okay. Okay. Uh, I'll upload this to the YouTubes, and you can go back through it and rewatch it if you need to. But as a quick kind of sum up of what this is,
Yeah,
is
yeah, I've got time.
okay. Def is just you're saying I want to define something. So like before, how you're assigning X a value or Batman a value. This is
Mm-hmm.
something similar, but you're saying I need it to do a lot more. Okay, this is going to be a bigger thing to play with than a simple variable. This is going to be a bunch of things. So you're giving it
Okay.
a bigger definition, and you're giving it a name, and then you're saying that this thing is going to do stuff, and it's the beginning of a nest, and that's what this is telling you. Okay,
Oh.
so you have a definition of a
Mm-hmm.
variable that's going to include a bunch of things that's going to happen inside of it. And from there, you nest everything inside of it as you need to. And then the next time that you call DC and you say, hey, I now need to know what happens when I run DC, you can run DC and it should spit out things for you. It is worth noting though, you know how before how you'd type in Bane and it would print
Mm-hmm.
out 21? If you were to run this as it is, def c x equals 7, and you were to say DC, this is the response that you would get. You would get nothing back. Okay?
Okay.
The reason is that while it's in this kind of phase, in this kind of mode, you have to tell
Mm-hmm.
it to print something back to you if you want it to print something back to you. So for here, you're just saying, hey, what's Bane? And it's coming back to you and saying it's 21. For here, even though x is the only variable inside, if you run DC, it's not going to come back and say 7. It's just going to say assign x the value of 7. Not show me what the value of x is, but assign x the value of 7. So you're going to run it, and x is going to have the value of 7. However, and I know this is supposed to be a summary. I'm teaching you new things on top of it.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
this value of x, this variable of x, only exists inside of this nest. So
Okay.
outside of this, so if you were to run DC and then you were to type in x, you would get an error because x doesn't exist outside of this nest.
Okay.
So x only exists in here. And so it's the idea that in here you're going to do a bunch of stuff to x so that you can return a value that's something else, like, right? So for some reason, we run DC and it spits out Chupacabra to us. That can very well happen, but somewhere in here I'd have to say, like, and then if I
Oh,
were to do that, then it would print out Chupacabra.
okay.
Okay. And then all this does is it means that x is equal to 7, but we're not doing anything with x. So there's really no point in having x equal to 7 right there. But I mean, that's just kind of giving you an idea of what the, the, the method is, what you're doing with this, what these parentheses kind of tell the language what you're intending to do. But there are some additional rules in place that make it a little bit, you have to be a little bit more precise with what you're doing. Otherwise, you'll end up with errors.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll upload this to the YouTubes and I'll send you the channel so you can take a look at it. And we'll get into the Sublime text editor next time, and I'll show you how you can set up programs that'll save, and you can use them over and over again. And that should be fun. Should be a good time.
Cool beans.
Okay. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns, derogatory remarks, insults about my weight? Anything that you want to throw out there?
Will this get easier?
Yes. Yes. When I said that this kind of concept here is like 80% of programming, I'm not joking. Like this, if you can understand how this works, that's your bread and butter. It really
Okay.
is. So the best way you can get better with it is just to practice it, like with anything. Um, yeah. And if you have questions about it, if you don't want to, if you think you're practicing it wrong, send me a
Mm-hmm.
text message or an email, and I'll answer it as best I can in whatever format's available to me. Um, but yeah, see if you can get a program to run, okay, in this Python little UI thing here. See if you can get a method to do something for you, print out a value, or print out a name, something, and then run that again and make sure that it prints it out to you each time. Okay.
Okay.
And we'll go into the depth of it later, but kind of get used to being able to do that because that really is the core of programming.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds great.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Um, yeah, and I understand where you're coming from with the difficulty on it. When I was first learning, I can't tell you how incredibly frustrated I was for the longest time because someone would explain something to me in a book or online, and they would leave out giant gaps of information that they just assumed that I had, and it just didn't make any sense to me. Like I walked around, and I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? Why did you make this jump from here to here? That doesn't make any sense to me." So if you have any of those moments, please let me know, and I'll do my best to walk backwards and figure out how I figured them out on my own. Um, but I fully understand that perspective, so don't feel bad if you have it. I started there. I have friends that started there. but over time you kind of build up those bridges and figure out how things connect.
Well, shoot, if you started there, I'm screwed, right?
No, no, I'm just saying if you feel that way,
No, I
that's,
do.
you know,
I absolutely 100%
okay.
look at this, and it's like you're speaking Vietnamese to me.
Ah, Hong Lang O Dongi Song. Haha. Um, um, so we'll get into more applicable ways of reasons why it matters to know the syntax and to actually apply it in a manner that is useful to you. Because right now, like being able to add up the Fibonacci numbers makes absolutely no difference to you, right? It doesn't matter to you
Right.
in the slightest. So why should you care about how to do it when to you it's like,
Because it was pretty cool.
well, yeah. I mean, it's cool from like an abstract perspective, but for you personally, you have like
Yeah.
no investment to knowing the Fibonacci numbers, right? Same
Maybe
reason.
that'll help seeing real world examples and why it's
Yeah,
important and what you would actually do with it.
yeah, and the reason why I'm approaching it from this perspective first is because I don't want to, open you up to a page that looks like this and then just start explaining stuff to you on the page and hoping that you get it. I want you to have some sort of great ground, some sort of base to build off of. So when you look at something like this, you can go, oh, I kind of recognize a couple of these things, but I don't know what the rest of them do. Um, but at least you're building off of what you do know and making it a little bit easier from then on. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, don't get too frustrated. Rewatch as much of this video as you want, or none of it, and practice as much as you can. And do you want to meet next Thursday as well? Do you want to do it a different day? I have so much extra time on my hands.
I
Anytime is
might
convenient for you is good for me.
I might move it to Tuesdays.
Okay, that doesn't work. I'm just kidding.
We'll see with what other school stuff I have, what
Okay.
days work, and I'll keep in touch though.
Okay. All right. All right. Have a good night. And I saw her walk by a few times. Say hi to Lisa for me.
Okay, I will.
And
She walked by a couple times.
yeah, she was sneaking one of them. So
Oh,
I mean, she was like, or maybe she wasn't. I
did
don't
you
know.
just sneak in the video because I can't see you?
Oh, you can't see me? Oh, I've been making gestures at the camera thinking that you could see me this entire time. Like, I kid you not. Let me, if I do this, I'm probably back, right? There he is. Okay. Wow. All right. Yeah, I was doing this. And no one could see me, so I looked like I was mentally handicapped. Um, good times, good
Are
times.
you still recording?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't cut out
Oh,
any of this. So yeah, people are
okay.
gonna get like some horrible stuff at the end that they don't necessarily need. Lucky for them.
And you should
Okay.
have told them that when right at the beginning of the end of the video, instead of like 5 minutes after the actual end of your teaching.
You know what? I with the power of video editing, I could do that. It would take me like 13, 14 minutes to figure out how to do that. I'm not going to. I'm gonna let them suffer through the end of this. They might be listening right now going, what the hell does this have to do with programming? Nothing. Zero. And that's
Uh,
okay. It's okay. A
okay.
lot of what you learn is going to feel pretty much useless, so why not incorporate it with other useless things?
Most of teaching and learning is useless, so
Yeah,
it works.
especially in college.
Yeah,
I'm
like right now I'm taking stats. It's retarded.
stats. I love stats. I really do. If you need tutoring help with stats, let me know. I got the whiteboard. You saw the whiteboard. I can help you out with that.
Ah, I could have used your help yesterday. Dang it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We said goodbye like 4 times, so I'm really going to say goodbye now. Let me know
Okay.
if you need anything
Bye.
and practice.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, dude. See ya.
Bye.